In this video we are going to talk about the Ted Bundy. Before starting this video, like this video and subscribe to our channel for future updates. Theodore Robert Bundy, November 24, 1946 to January 24, 1989, was an American serial murderer who abducted, raped, and murdered a number of young women and girls in the 1970s and probably earlier. He confessed to 30 killings he committed in 7 states between 1974 and 1978 after more than a decade of denials. Bundy's real victim count is unknown, although it is likely far higher. Bundy was known for being personable and attractive, qualities he used to gain the trust of both his victims and the general public. He would approach his victims in public places, claiming a physical impediment such as an injury or impersonating an official figure, before bludgeoning them senseless and transporting them to secondary sites where they would be raped and strangled. Bundy returned to his victims frequently, grooming and performing sexual activities on their bodies until decomposition and wild animal damage rendered any further encounters impossible. He decapitated at least 12 people and kept their severed heads in his room as mementos. He broke into homes at night on a few occasions and bludgeoned his victims as they slept. Bundy was arrested and imprisoned for aggravated kidnapping and attempted criminal violence in Utah in 1975. He was then named as a suspect in a growing number of unsolved homicides across numerous states. Faced with murder accusations in Colorado, he staged 2 spectacular escapes and carried out additional assaults in Florida, involving 3 killings, before being apprehended in 1978. In 2 trials for the Florida homicides, he received 3 death sentences. On January 24, 1989, Bundy was executed at the Florida State Prison at Rayford. Bundy was a cruel sociopath who took delight in another human's misery and the control he had over his victims, to the point of death and even after, according to biographer and Rule. He once described himself as the coldest-hearted son of a bitch you'll ever meet, a description that his last defense team member, attorney Polly Nelson, concurred with. Ted was the exact embodiment of uncaring wickedness, she wrote. Ted Bundy was born Theodore Robert Cowell on November 24, 1946, in the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Burlington, Vermont, to Eleanor Louise Cowell, 1924 to 2012, known by her middle name. His father's identity has never been proven. According to some stories, his birth certificate attributes fatherhood to a salesperson and U.S. Air Force veteran called Lloyd Marshall, while others claim the father is unknown. Louise claimed she was seduced by a military veteran called Jack Worthington, who left her shortly after she became pregnant. Some family members speculated that Bundy was maybe fathered by Louise's own father, Samuel Cowell. Psychiatrist Dr. Dorothy Otno Lewis acknowledged in the 2020 American documentary film Crazy, Not Insane that she was able to organize a DNA test that revealed Bundy was not fathered by his own grandfather. Bundy spent his first 3 years of life in the Philadelphia home of his maternal grandparents, Samuel, 1898 to 1983, and Eleanor Cowell, 1895 to 1971, who raised him as their son to avoid the social stigma associated with childbirth outside of marriage at the time. His grandparents were his parents, and his mother was his older sister, according to family, friends, and even young Ted. Bundy eventually learned the truth, though his recollections of the events differed. He told a girlfriend that a cousin showed him a copy of his birth certificate after calling him a bastard, but he told biographers Stephen Michaud and Hugh Ainsworth that he had discovered the certificate himself. Bundy did not find out until 1969, when he obtained his actual birth registration in Vermont, according to Rule, a biographer and true crime writer who knew him firsthand. Bundy held a grudge against his mother for never telling him about his biological father and leaving him to figure out his true ancestry on his own. At a young age, Bundy displayed some unsettling behavior. Julia, Louise's younger sister, awoke from a slumber to find herself surrounded by kitchen knives and 3-year-old Ted standing by the bed, smiling. Bundy spoke fondly of his grandparents in some interviews, telling Rule that he connected with, respected, and clung to his grandfather. He and other family members told attorneys in 1987 that Samuel was a despotic bully and bigot who loathed blacks, Italians, Catholics, and Jews, beat his wife and family dog, and swung neighborhood cats by their tails. Julia was once thrown down a flight of stairs by Samuel for sleeping too much. When the topic of Bundy's paternity was broached, he sometimes talked loudly to unseen presences and at least once erupted into a frenzy. Bundy characterized his grandmother as a fearful and obedient woman who received electroconvulsive therapy for depression on a regular basis and feared leaving their home near the end of her life. More recent investigations have cast doubt on Bundy's grandparents' descriptions. Louise changed her surname from Cowell to Nelson in 1950 and left Philadelphia with Ted to live with cousins Alan and Jane Scott in Tacoma, Washington, at the request of other family members. At an adult singles night at Tacoma's First Methodist Church in 1951, Louise met Johnny Culpepper Bundy, 1921 to 2007, a hospital cook. Later that year, they married, and Johnny adopted Ted. Johnny and Louise had 4 children together, and despite Johnny's efforts to include his adopted son in family activities such as camping trips, Ted remained estranged from his stepfather. He later told a lover that Johnny wasn't his biological father, that he wasn't very brilliant, and that he didn't make much money. In later years, Bundy's memories of Tacoma changed. To Michaud and Ainsworth, he mentioned wandering around his area, rummaging through garbage cans for photos of naked women. He also told Polly Nelson that he looked through detective magazines, crime novels, and real crime documentaries for stories about sexual violence, especially if the stories were illustrated with photographs of dead or injured women. However, he claimed in a letter to Rule that he never, ever read fact detective periodicals, and cringed at the thought that anyone would. He told Michaud that after drinking a lot of alcohol, he would canvass the town late at night looking for undraped windows where he could view women undressing or anything else could be seen. Bundy's social life was also described in many ways. He told Michaud and Ainsworth as an adolescent that he chose to be alone because he couldn't grasp human interactions. He asserted that he lacked the inherent ability to form friendships. Bundy remarked, "I didn't know what made people want to be friends. I had no idea what lied beneath social relationships." Bundy was well known and well liked at Woodrow Wilson High School, according to classmates, a medium-sized fish in a huge pond. Bundy's sole serious sporting activity was downhill skiing, which he pursued with zeal using stolen equipment and counterfeit lift passes. He was arrested at least twice in high school on charges of burglary and auto theft. The specifics of the incidents were deleted from his record when he turned 18, as is common in Washington and many other U.S. states. Bundy admitted to 30 homicides the night before his execution, but the real number is unknown. Bundy's known victims were mostly Caucasian ladies between the ages of 17 and 23, who were either in college, physically attractive, financially independent, and displayed various personality qualities of psychological independence, or more than one or all of the aforementioned traits. Bundy occasionally made cryptic statements to fuel speculation, and published estimates have reached as high as 100 or more. In 1980, he told Ainsworth that for every reported murder, there might be one that was not. Bundy said, "Add 1 digit to that, and you'll have it," when FBI officers recommended a total of 36. Years later, he told Nelson that the common estimate of 35 was correct, but that and I both knew was substantially greater, as Keppel wrote. Reverend Fred Lawrence, the Methodist clergyman who conducted Bundy's last rites, said, "I don't think even he realized how many he killed or why he killed them. That was my strong impression," she said. Bundy went over his victim list with Hagmaier the night before his execution, state by state, for a total of 30 homicides. What do you think about this video? Do let us know down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.